Hi everyone and welcome back to episode 2 of Snapshots. Today with me I have a very special guest. She is a filmmaker from Sheridan College and I've worked with her on a couple of shoots and it's been so much fun. Everyone meet Robin.
Hey guys.
Hey Robin, I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Could you please tell the viewers a little about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Robin Skye Farr. I'm a writer, a director, a producer. I started in the film industry doing stunts, performing for union work, and then I came to Sheridan in hopes to find something more stable than performing, and I fell in love with directing.
That's really cool. I'm so happy to have you here today on the show. It's because you've worked on multiple films and you have experience working in a union as well. And I feel your experience would be highly valuable to a lot of people.
For sure. I feel like working on union sets, union and independent film sets are very, very different, but they both have pros and cons to them. But I think that going into independent filmmaking, bringing experience from union sets is so important, and then also kind of bringing that professional energy too.
Before we get into topics like the union and stuff, let's start with you as a filmmaker. Could you tell me a little bit about the projects that you've worked on and any challenges that you've faced during filming, pre-production, post-production, anything?
Sure. So I started my very first film that I wrote and directed was 2 years ago. So I'm honestly a little bit late compared to I feel like a lot of my colleagues in my program when it came to filmmaking. I never actually set out to make any films, but I co-wrote a film called A Mother's Daughter, which was my first film I did, and it was a 3-minute film, super short film for a class assignment, and we premiered it in in class, and then we premiered it in our whole program, and the response that we got from it was insane. People were crying, people were saying how important the film was to them and the message, and I think that's where I was like, oh, this is important. Film isn't just something on a screen, it can actually carry a lot of meaning, a lot of messages. So from there, I made my second film, which was called Razors Do Burn, which was a psychological drama in a motel, which was interesting. And then I just finished my last film, which is a coming-of-age film. It's a very poetic film called Another Life, which hopefully will be premiering soon at a film festival. So, yeah.
I've actually seen Razors Do Burn.
Yes.
I've seen it at the Crowdpix Film Festival,
Yes.
where it was screened. And what I loved about Razors Do Burn is we see the beautiful use of cinematography. We have color gels, and when the actors are high, we have this hazy feel. And it starts off as romance, but then it takes this deep turn. And me as a viewer, when I was sitting and watching this for the first time, it really had an impact because it wasn't like the typical romance films, right? It was really deep and it touched upon a lot of sensitive topics. So do you want to speak to the viewers a little bit about your film and what inspired you to make it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with all my films, that was the one thing I'm really glad you said that, because I said to my crew, I was like, I want it to feel like we're about to watch a romance film at the beginning. I want this to be this really special bonding moment between this couple, and then I wanted to just take this super dark turn where we see the real kind of truth behind this relationship and kind of the dark feelings between the characters. I think with all of my films, what's really important to me is being influenced, I guess, by personal experience, whether that's a single piece of dialogue, whether that's a piece of a character that I've expand into this completely different character. Every one of my films, and with Razors Do Burn, I think it just stems from when we're struggling with certain things in life. And for me, I struggled to express my emotions, and when I found film, I was like, oh, I can tell my story, and I can kind of make sense of things that have happened to me or emotions that I've had trouble processing through film. And if I do that, then other people will watch it and they'll feel connected, because all of our hardships aren't as unique as you may think, and a lot of people are probably feeling the exact same things. So I guess, yeah, personal experience and then just expanding upon it until it becomes fiction.
You take your personal experience and you turn it into a film, right? Especially when you're covering deep topics like self-harm, the way you did in this film. did you face any challenges in making this film? Because I'm going to assume that it was probably really hard to make, not only the production process, but even taking such a deep and sensitive topic and choosing to make that into a film it requires a lot of bravery in a way, right? Because when we make a romantic comedy, for example, because of the light subject matter, we can have fun with it. But when you cover a topic like an abusive relationship, and when you cover topics like self-harm, there's a lot more that you need to consider, and you also have to shoot it in a way that moves the audience, right? So could you tell me a little bit about that process?
Sure. So I'm not gonna lie, like I definitely struggle a lot sometimes on set. Like with Razors Do Burn, it was for me, it was kind of certain pieces of the characters that I put myself into. It wasn't necessarily like I'm making this movie that was like this isn't this from my experience, but like there's pieces of myself in the film, and I guess it's honoring those pieces of myself. And sometimes it can be very hard. Like there was the one scene that we did in the beginning of the film, and for some people it might not seem like anything, but for me, like that was very, it was beautiful to see something come alive so like vulnerably and so beautifully, but then it was like, oh, like, you know, this is hard to watch because like this is something that is very personal to me. So I think that it's really, I think going back and remembering that I'm making these films for my younger self and to honor her, and then also just realizing that if I've gone through these things, then people have also gone through these things. So I guess just realizing that when this premieres, that it'll make people feel seen, and that's why I continue to do it, even if it sometimes it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. It's that everything that you create, it is intrinsic in a way, right? You create these films to create some sort of change, which is the heart of filmmaking. I feel is that we create these type of films to move the audience, because when the audience takes a look at this hero going out there and achieving great things in the world, they see themselves in the hero. And when you watch a film and that film moves you, it moves you to tears. What really moves you in the film is that you see yourself in the protagonist, and you see the protagonist going out there and achieving his full potential in a way, and deep within you feel that you could do the same. You could go out there and you could achieve your full potential in the real world. And I feel that's something that's really powerful and impactful in film. And the way you've done it in Razors Do Burn, you've taken this topic that people find hard to communicate, these abusive relationships and health and self-harm, and you've compiled that visually, artistically, and you've made this beautiful film, and it really does have a strong impact on a viewer. So it's really good. I also remember you sent me your other film as well, right? What's the other one?
Another Life is my newest one.
Yeah, Another Life. When I saw Another Life, what struck me immediately was the contrast between Another Life and the contrast between Razors Do Burn.
Yes.
Because I first saw Razors Do Burn, and it had such dark subject matter, it touched on such a dark topic. But then when I saw Another Life, the first thing that caught my eye was it had a unique aspect ratio, and the aspect ratio kept changing, and you used a lot of grain and kind of made it all feel like a memory, which was the point of the film. You did that really well. I also noticed that even that film takes a dark turn, and I wasn't expecting that, because with Razors Do Burn, the way you utilized colors by having the red tones in the and having the actress smoke weed for the first time and cut herself by mistake, like we can kind of tell that the film is going to take a dark turn. But in your other film, you talk about you have a little girl who's telling us the story of a hare and the turtle, right?
Yeah.
And you don't quite understand. It catches you off guard, is what I'm trying to say.
I think, like, it's interesting you said about, like, such a contrast, because Razors Do Burn, for, like, people who haven't seen it, it is a very dark film, both visually and, like, with its content, and then Another Life is a very light-hearted film for the most part. Like it's about growing up and kind of being scared of that, but it is like these two flourishing relationships, really. So it is more lighthearted, and it's definitely shot more like everything's outside. It's all very visually light. And I think just like it's interesting as a writer is I at that point in my life I wanted to make another life. I was like, I'm scared to make a coming of age film, but someone who came on the project really early on was Shauna Bushlin, who really inspired me, like her filmmaking and her style and her storytelling. She was the production designer on it, but she also was so, like, I collaborated with her on some ideas for the script and the characters, and she really made me feel safe, because I've never done a coming of age film before, so that was really scary for me, but I felt safe with her to do that. And I think it was just like this moment in my life where I was like, okay, I want to make a more lighthearted film, even if it has still that, like, this, the fear of growing up. So I thought that was interesting to do.
And what I really loved about this film in particular is, for people who haven't watched the film, there's a scene, spoiler alert, there's the scene where the protagonist, she's celebrating her 20th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 20th or
Yeah,
21st?
20th, yeah.
20th, yeah. Yeah, so she's celebrating her 20th birthday, and as people are singing her happy birthday and as she cuts the cake, we also hear this nasty argument that she's having with her boyfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see the contrast there. We see this happy moment where she's cutting her cake and everyone's wishing her, but she's really not happy because her boyfriend hasn't attended it.
Mm-hmm.
And we also see the aftermath, which is this argument that takes place. Like, what inspired you to have that in the film?
So, interesting enough, I'm not sure if you picked up on it, but Another Life, when I pitched the script, basically, so this is a huge spoiler alert, and I didn't want it to be obvious at first. I definitely wanted people to watch the film a couple times before they realize, but Another Life is about two parallel universes. They don't happen in the same universe. So we're kind of watching as she's, going off with her friend and flourishing in this friendship, and then she's in a different universe with this boyfriend, and it's almost like the boyfriend is that friend in a different universe, as if it had worked out. So with that cutting, I really wanted to portray like a connection between herself and these two different universes, and kind of how much love you can have with one person or one moment just from a simple decision that you made, like a couple months ago, meeting her, whereas if you stay in this relationship, what your life can look like, and just kind of the decisions we make, how much they impact us and how much they can impact our life in the long run.
I really love the plot in both of your stories, right? Because especially in Razors Do Burn, we kind of have an idea on where the plot's going to go and end up. But in your other film, it catches us off guard, and there's so many layers that goes within a story, right? Because in any good story, what really makes the story interesting is how deep can you take the story without like deviating a lot from the main plot, right? So you have some subplots in the film as well, right? So we see this life with her friend, and then you see her life with her boyfriend, and it's both taking these completely different like sidetracks, right? The story with her friend, she's happy, they're bonding, and then the story with her boyfriend, they start off happy, but then it starts to go downhill. And the way you just told me that both of these happen in two different universes, the way you manage to tie them together and form a single story, that is really impressive. So if you were to give advice to new writers to write stories that have depth, right? To go away from the cliche and actually write unique stories that are impactful and meaningful and have these type of deep messaging in them, what advice would you give them?
I think the first thing is just acknowledging that like there's so much talent in independent filmmaking and writers. Like we aren't allowed to make sequels and prequels of already very established franchises. So that forces us to be original. Like, we have to be original, otherwise we're going to get sued. I think that, you know, with streaming services and, you know, a lot of the new movies coming out, like, they are definitely doing more prequels and sequels and remakes of things that have happened, you know, 20 years ago. And, like, we aren't allowed to do that. So we automatically already have to be original. So I think just acknowledging that and using that to our advantage, and we have to be creative. Like, we don't have a lot of money to tell our stories. And so I guess with writing, if you want to go down that path of, you know, those deeper stories, which if you want to do comedy, like, totally fine too, but if you want to kind of do the other genres, I think that we have an advantage of being able to tell our own stories, because we all have our own perspectives. So not writing from experience, but like using pieces of ourselves, using pieces of things that we see out in the world from our own eyes to tell those stories. And also just don't write for other people. Like, when I first started writing, I really wasn't writing for people to watch my film and go, wow, this is such a great story. Like, I was writing it because it was, in a cliche way, it was healing parts of myself. Like, I was writing these stories because I felt that it was my story to tell at that time. So I guess just, like, not making it about other people, but really focusing on yourself when you're writing things really helps.
Could you share with us the steps that went into making this film, the pre-production, the post-production? What did you go through to make this film?
Sure. So I feel like Another Life is more interesting in the pre-production process, so I'll talk about that. A year ago, so last summer, at the beginning of summer, I wrote a poem about fate, and I was going through, like, a hard time, and sometimes I'll write poems or just kind of get out ideas, and it's like kind of word vomit. But I was scared to grow up. Like, I'm turning 20 this year. I'm not a teenager anymore. So I was kind of writing this film about, you know, how people leave our lives and how, you know, the future is very unknown, and like what steps am I taking that are going to affect the rest of my future? And I always think about, okay, if I do this, then how is that going to affect me 10 years down the line? And I wrote this film because I was like, okay, girl, like, chill. Like, you're 19, you don't need to be thinking that deep about things. So a year later, I kind of wrote the screenplay based on that poem, but from this more mature perspective, I guess, of like, that's kind of where in the film, like, the poetry, her voiceover is almost that character's going back on all the memories that we see in the film and analyzing them from a more mature perspective, just like I wrote the film from a more mature perspective, if that makes sense. So it was a very long process with the screenplay, and then I guess just assembling crew for it was like the next step, and casting. Like, you sit with the film in the writing process for a very long time before anything gets set into motion, and then I pitched the film in class and it got picked. And then that's when you were like, okay, now I actually have to, like, finish the script. And lots of meetings with my professor and building our crew. And then from there, just basically finding locations, and then it goes into the process.
Cool. So when you cast people for your films,
Mm-hmm.
like, do you have a character in mind, and do you, like, go to the casting process and try to find that character in other people? Is that how casting works?
Yeah, for me, for casting, so I always write the character first, and then I do something interesting. I kind of am always on the lookout for people that can act. Like, the main lead in Another Life actually was in my friend group, and I didn't know if he could act, but I knew that, like, just from being around him, that he embodied the character, and I was like, hey, like, send me a self-tape. I just want to see if you can act. And he did, and I was like, okay, like, I can work with this. He never been on set before, he never acted before, he did such an incredible job. But for me, like, I like to know the person and already have, like, somewhat of a relationship with them. Obviously, when we get into, like, bigger projects, I'm gonna have to use casting workbook and go out of my way and find new people, and, like, I'll embrace that process. But for now, with independent filmmaking and sort of these lower budget projects, I really like to, you know, just keep people in the back of my mind. Like, my lead, Sam, Danica, I worked with her in first year, so, like, 2 years ago. I worked with her on, like, a few days, and I thought of her, and I was like, hey, she would be perfect for this role. And then I was like, hey, send me self-tape, and she sent it, and then I casted her. So that's kind of how my casting process works.
The casting happens after you get the locations down, am I right?
I do casting before. Cast normally happens like pretty early on after you write your screenplay.
We also have to consider everyone's schedule.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
how does that work? How do you get the cast before you get the locations? Because you need to get the locations and schedule down, right?
Like, I like to describe film as a puzzle, and you don't have any of the pieces. Like, genuinely, like, you have your 3 castmates, those are your 3 pieces, and then you have, like, all your 4 locations, those are your little pieces, and they just get thrown at you, like, on some random day at, like, 2 a.m., and you have to figure out how they all go together, and there's no math to it, there's no, like, simple formula. It is absolute chaos, and it's very stressful, but I think you just have to be very organized, and communicate is so important. Like, communicate with your locations people, communicate with your cast and your crew, and that's how you find success.
Now, directing your film is not an easy task. Not everyone can direct a production the way you do. Could you talk a little bit about the challenges that you faced directing your first film, and any advice you would have to upcoming directors who are thinking of making their first film professionally?
I think challenges with directing is I put a lot of pressure on myself, like, especially, like, I just always have with anything that I do, but especially when you're writing and directing a film and editing, because I edited both of my films. It's like, okay, well, if you don't like the film, that's your fault, because you wrote it, you directed it, and now you're editing it. Like, it's literally your fault if it goes wrong. So I think that is very scary and very intimidating. But I think just realizing that, like, okay, you made this film for a reason, you decided to do this. It's not an easy task. It's not a simple thing to be like, okay, we're going to get a crew together and make a film. So I think just realizing why you did it. And for, like, new filmmakers, I think just if you have a story to tell, just tell it. And, like, don't put pressure on yourself to make it look good. Don't compare yourself to others. It's a huge thing. And look at influences of, like, different directors, like big directors, and use that to your advantage.
So when you are directing your films, you are basically the head of the entire production, right? So how do you stay calm when you're directing a big shoot? Because me personally, when I'm directing my first film, and I feel super tense because I have to work with like 50 people now. How do I do that on my own? Like, how do you stay calm as a director?
That's a great question. Like, I'm gonna be honest, in pre-production, I am not calm, but nobody sees that. Like, my crew and cast do not see that. Like, when we're on meetings, when we're sitting together, I do not show that. Like, that happens behind closed doors. But, like, it is very stressful. And I think that, like, if you look at another director and be like, well, why are they so calm right now? Like, how are they doing so good? They're probably not. They are probably not. They're probably going home and losing their mind. But I think just really trusting yourself, and, like, when you're on set, biggest thing is, like, stay calm. Like, no matter what, there will be things that will happen that you will never expect, that you will think, like, literally will be the end of the world. And, like, there was something that happened on my set on the first day, and I made a joke about it. I laughed. I took 5 minutes, went to the bathroom, and I came back. And, like, that's something, like, I knew if I stayed out on the floor, I was probably gonna, like, say something that I didn't mean, or just not. If you're a director, you're a leader, you set the tone for the film. If you're stressed, if you are, like, obviously I'm gonna be stressed, but, like, showing that stress and taking it out on other people's, like, never acceptable. So, like, if you need to take 5 minutes, go to the bathroom, take your 5 minutes. If you need to make a joke, make a joke. Like, I think just really showing your cast and crew, like, you know what, I got this, I got your guys' back, and you guys have mine, and trusting your crew.
That's some great advice, and that's what I try to do when I film, right? Is I try my best to really hype everyone up. Even though as the director we feel the most pressure, because at the end of the day, like, when a film fails, for example, it's easy to point fingers and say, hey, it's bad because the DOP wasn't focusing it properly, or it was bad because of improper planning from set design. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, as the director, you kind of have that responsibility. And when you are directing a bunch of people, your mood as a director kind of reflects on the entire crew.
Yeah.
So when you are having a stressful situation, you need to know how to control yourself in that stressful situation, because if the entire crew starts stressing and if the actor starts stressing, then you aren't gonna get the best output.
Yeah. And like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I'm so chill on set. Like I'm very stressed out when I walk on a set. I'm sitting there like at lunchtime when people are eating, I'm taking my sandwich to like a corner of the room and I'm sitting there and I'm just like thinking, looking at a wall. Like I get very stressed out on set, and that's definitely something that I'm working on. But I think there's a big difference between like being stressed out and, like you said, like pointing fingers. Like you should never be pointing fingers. And I think a big thing with like people are gonna make mistakes. It's gonna happen. And then I think it's your job as a leader to be like, okay, guys, like, heads together, what are we going to do to solve it? Because if you're sitting there being like, okay, are you kidding me? Like, you didn't bring this. Like, you didn't think of that. Then you're wasting time when you could have been solving the issue instead of being like, okay, like on my set, for example, like, there were a few times where, like, we had to do some quick problem solving. And, like, again, like, instead of being like, oh, my God, like, how, like, this is ruining time, I'm like, okay, guys, like, heads together, what can we do? And we solve those issues because people are very creative. Like, we're all in film, we're very creative people, like, we can figure it out. So I think I'm definitely want to work on that more, that, like, handling my stress and, like, not being so stressed out and being able to have a little bit of fun on set, for sure.
And I feel like even if you do have everything planned and even if you have everything scheduled, when you're working on tight deadlines, it is going to be stressful regardless. Even if things are going well, it's still going to be stressful, right?
Yes.
And I remember when I was the DOP for Lucas's film, The Wingman, we had some scenes that we were filming inside a bar, and we had to film all those scenes before the bar opened to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first time DOPing a film. It wasn't the best DOP work, but that is the first time I experienced what stress feels like on a film set. When you have 20 to 30 shots and you want to get all of that done in a 2-hour time span, oh man, it gets really stressful. And great job to Lucas for keeping it calm. He did a really great job. And it kind of like inspired me to stay cool when filming on these type of like time constraints sets. Did you have any sets like that were super time constrained in your film?
I think like Razors Do Burn, we had 7 hours to film in the motel because we had booked out like the room in the parking lot from the owner. So we had filmed till 3 a.m. that day. It was we were all very tired. We'd already filmed for 7 hours on a different film. That was definitely quite stressful, but like I'm not sure why with that set, like I was so much more cool. Like I feel like we were all in one location. I had such a great casting crew, and I was like, oh, like this is okay. We're gonna get our shots. We did go overtime, but we did get our shots, and it turned out great. But I think like at the end of the day, like it is like we're making a movie. Like, you know what I mean? We're not saving someone's life. We're not, we're making a film. So I think just remembering that, and like sometimes it's not that deep. Sometimes the things we're stressing about are not that deep, and like I remember this one scene that I was stressed about, we ended up cutting from the film because it just didn't fit. So I'm like, okay, like it doesn't, some things just don't matter. It's good to care, but also knowing when to stop caring, for sure.
And also I feel like you have to be a people person, you have to be an extrovert if you want to be a filmmaker. And I really had to push myself out of my introverted bubble and meet new people and communicate with everyone in the crew. And did you have any issues communicating with the people in your crew? How did you learn to communicate with people in the crew and with the cast and everyone in general?
I think that I've always been someone who's like very outgoing, and I genuinely didn't have an issue stepping into director's role. Like I feel like that was something that always just kind of made sense for like me, my personality. So that like made sense for me to step into that role. And I guess just with communicating, like that's like it's such a big thing. And I think that so many people in film forget that, is like if you're on my crew and you can't communicate with me, like that is so frustrating. And like even in performing, like you're not communicating with people, you're not going to get hired. So I think just being honest with people, and like if you have conflict, like pull them aside, talk to them, like ask them like, hey, what's going on? Like even if you don't agree with what they're doing or what they're saying, just have that conversation with them and communicate. And I think that as a leader, like that's something that's so important to do, and such a good skill to have.
So how do you deal with conflict as a director?
I think that there's 2 different types of conflict. There's like the environmental which is, it's gonna happen. There's gonna be a wardrobe malfunction, there's gonna be a prop issue, there's gonna be a location issue, there's always gonna be something. With that, it's like literally looking to your crew and being like, okay guys, ideas, like brainstorm, vomit, like tell me what you think we should do. Or like just thinking quick on the spot. You have to be a quick thinker if you're a director, because like there's gonna be things that are gonna go wrong. And then with people, like I said, like communicating is so important. And like I'm not gonna sit here and say I haven't had conflict with anybody on set, but like I think a big way to prevent it even from happening, like I was on set performing, it was a Netflix show, and I sat down with the DOP at lunchtime and had a conversation with him because I wanted to get in the camera. And he explained to me, he was like, everyone goes into film for a reason. Like, this is a very niche thing. You don't just go into this industry where you're working 16 hours a day for 6 to 7 days a week for no reason. Like, this is a very abusive industry. They're not just going in here for any reason. So, like, bring that inner filmmaker out of your crew. Like, if there's a lighting decision or, you know, a certain lens needs to be put on, as a DOP, he was like, I asked my crew, okay, what do you think would look good here? For this character, what do you think would work to tell the story? And they'd be like, oh, you're asking for my opinion? Like, oh, like, I want to tell you, because like they have ideas, like they have knowledge, they have creativity. So I think even preventing conflict is giving your crew, don't like sit there and be like, I know everything and I'm making all the decisions. Like let them make decisions. Be like, hey, like, what do you think we should do here? And it just makes it makes you happy, it makes them happy, and they become a part of the project. So I think like to even prevent it from happening, don't be a micromanager. And that comes from someone who like started as a micromanager as a director, and I've fully tried to like grow from that and not be like that. And I think being a micromanager causes a lot of conflict. So as a leader, don't micromanage.
You told me that you have been on some Netflix sets before, right? Could you tell me a little bit about your professional career in acting and what it has taught you and how it's impacted you as a filmmaker today?
Sure. So yeah, I started when I was 5. I grew up in that kind of world. My dad was a stunt performer. So I started when I was 5 and kind of been doing like shows and movies here and there for the past couple years. I just did Prom Queen last summer. I did the It movies.
You did the It movies?
I did the It movies. I did the first It, I was doing stunts, and the second one I was just doing special skills extra. But yeah, it's been interesting performing. I definitely don't want to get into that. I don't do any of the big stunts. It's mainly kind of like stunt acting work. But yeah, I had this passion. I wanted to be an actor. I was like, at like 10 years old, I was like, I'm gonna be an actor, and I did the whole thing. I got an agent. I did years of work, and I realized I was like, I definitely don't want to be an actor. I definitely like to be a director. But I think like that like decade of experience and even being on like union sets and these big movies and shows has taught me so much as a director. Like I see some directors who are really focused on the technical aspects of films, and for certain genres, like that works. Like you need to just be focusing on like your what is going on in the frame. With Another Life, like for that film, we did improvised. What did I call it? It was rehearsed improvisation. So for 2 hours every day before we shot, we went through every single scene, and we had a script. But I was like, I don't want you to say those lines. I said these are the beats you need to hit, but you need to make up your own dialogue and your own actions, because I want it to be natural. Like this film was meant to be a raw film. So I was like, you guys need to make it natural. So we sat there and we worked out these beats together, and it was like this collaborative experience. But I think like I focus so much on the acting and capturing these stories, because like they are your stories. These people are acting out these characters and bringing the story to life. So I think that like my background in acting has allowed me to focus more on that and also bring it out of them. Like for example, on Another Life, in the fight scene, that was a very hard scene to shoot, and we had started it. There was some camera issues, and like we weren't quite getting there. It was very mellow. We had lunch, and both my actors were sleeping. The two in the fight, and I was like, oh no! Like I was sitting there at lunch, I was like, they're gonna be so tired. Like we have to do this major fight scene. They're screaming at each other, high intensity, but they're sleeping. So we got up and we did theater exercises. You know, we did like some shaking out. We had Shauna lead it. We did some like vocal exercises to get the energy up, and then we did the scene. I think maybe 10 or 12 times to get that energy there, because I knew that they needed it. Like, because as an actor, I'm like, I know I need that to get that intensity. Like, I can't just jump in and be like, bah, like, I need to get there. And then, just like a throwaway at the end, I was like, okay, you say Can I swear on this podcast?
Sure, go ahead,
okay.
go ahead.
I told the actress, I was like, you say fuck you to him, and I said to Caleb, I was like, you say fuck you, and I was just like, you guys just scream at each other, like, just as like throwaway, like, don't think about it, just scream.
Yeah, just make it as natural and raw as possible.
Yes.
If you want to make a real fight scene, there's obviously going to be some swearing in there, right?
Yeah, and I just wanted them to build off each other, and they were screaming. Like, Caleb couldn't call her a bitch. That was, like, an issue. He would not call her, and I was like, I need you to call her that for, like, the scene. And he was like, you bitch. And I was like, no. Like, so we did this exercise, and he did it, and he said it, and it sounded so good, and that's what we ended up using in the final cut. So I think just, like, knowing how to get your actors there if they're not quite hitting the mark that you envisioned has helped me a lot.
It's really interesting. So from what you told me, it seems like you first let the actors enact themselves and then you work from that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool. Now, you've worked with a bunch of directors on these major Netflix films. How is their workflow different from, let's say, a student director or student film producer? Because it's way higher budget, there's a lot more at stake, and you've seen these directors work. Could you share a little limelight into what they do?
I think the biggest thing that I notice, just on union sets in general, is organization. They're so organized. The directors are so supported. They don't take on as many roles. Not that like they don't work hard, just in the sense of like they don't take as many roles as independent filmmakers do. Like, for example, like locations. Directors or producers, they're doing locations for independent films. For, the bigger films, they don't have to worry about that. So they can literally focus on their job, which is creating that frame and bringing that creative interpretation to the frame, which is, that's their job. So I think just like they're able to work more stress-free because they're so much more supported and the whole set is just more organized. So I'm definitely looking forward, seeing where my career goes to get to that point where I can just work as a director without like this extra, the stress and the chaos. But I do love the independent filmmaking for that. Like there is a little bit of gold to that, having that chaos.
So when you are having an action scene, for example, you have it choreographed, right? Now, when you enact these scenes, do you see yourself getting into character when you play the role that you're playing?
Like for stunt performing more?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that for stunt performing, it's a little different. Like, you don't necessarily have to take on the character more. I think it's more about just kind of doing what makes sense in that moment. Like, you can almost just play, a lot of the characters I'm just playing myself. I just happen to be in that scene in that particular moment. But when I did acting, you're sitting with that character and you're finding yourself in that character. You're going, okay, well this is a part of me, and every character you can find a part of yourself in. And I think that taking that knowledge, and when I write my characters, I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, well, would this character say this? No. Okay, well then don't write that piece of dialogue. Like I act out every single one of my characters' dialogue to make sure it sounds natural. And if it doesn't, it's getting cut.
How do you do that exactly? Because when you are writing multiple characters, you are putting yourself into the minds of completely different people, and you have a way of thinking that you've used throughout your life. And now let's say you're writing a villain, or let's say you're writing this really funny person. How do you make a script, and how do you write for these characters and make it seem natural?
I think, like, that's a really good question with the villain question, because, like, even a villain, they have to have a motivation, they have to have a goal that, like, makes sense. They, like, why are they a villain? You have to think about that. Like, you have to give them a backstory. And, like, when I write characters, I write pages and pages and pages of backstory, and maybe the actors don't even see it sometimes, maybe it doesn't get conveyed to the audience, but, like, you need that to be able to give them, like, a strong foundation for who they are. Like with Another Life, with the boyfriend, he's saying some really hurtful things, and maybe we start to not like him, but it's okay, well, why is he saying these things? And he's coming from a place of hurt. He's coming from a place where he has never let anyone in before, and now he's let this person in, and it's not working out the way that he wanted wanted it to, and he's taking it out on her. Like, you have to give him some sort of backstory that makes sense. And I guess, like, with your question of, like, with Another Life, we have 3 completely different characters. And writing them, I'm taking pieces of people that I've met, of people that I've seen on the street, of just, you know, interactions that I've had. Like, it can be the simplest thing of, like, the way that he touched his hair in one scene is something that I saw, and I was like, that fits this character. So I think just, like, being observant when you go out and really taking note of those things.
Yeah, like stories can be found anywhere.
Yes.
Right? Like when I go to Toronto, the type of stories that I see out there, like I can make a film just with the different type of people I see in Toronto.
Yes.
And also, people often don't realize that the stories within their circle is sometimes the most interesting stories that you can find. You don't need to go and read 100 books to find great stories. Sometimes you just don't know what you have in your own life, and taking what you have in your life and depicting it as a film, you'll be surprised how many people would actually find that interesting, because everyone has had unique experiences, and everyone's unique experience can be portrayed in film. So
Definitely.
So
I
yeah.
do think it is really important too to, like, if you are drawing from personal experience or drawing from people that you've seen, is like you're making a film. It's fiction. So I think that's definitely something that's important for, like, new filmmakers and writers, is don't just write your life. You will drive yourself insane. Don't write someone else's life. That's not okay. Like take pieces of yourself and put that into your film. Put that into a character. And I think that's something important to remember, is that it's fiction, and that we're just expanding upon things that we know, if that makes sense.
Got it. That's really cool. Now, when you are writing fiction, right? The plot kind of evolves, doesn't it? So you have a story in your head, but when you actually go into the writing process and you're met with that blank page, do you have an ending in mind when you're writing the story? Do you already have the story planned out, or do you let the plot kind of evolve as you're writing the story?
I think it really depends on the film. Like, honestly, when I'm writing, I'm not trying to be a writer, but I like to tell my own stories. I think it's really a good exercise to be able to direct my own stories. But I just kind of word vomit on the page. Like, I have my characters, and then I'll be, like, sitting, and I won't even be writing, I'll just think of something. I'm like, oh, this character needs to do this. And then it all just kind of spirals. And then, like, Another Life, the ending, I always had that ending in mind. Like, I was like, when I pitched the script, that was my ending. But the way that it was portrayed, I'd never had that. Like, I never thought it'd be a rooftop. I wanted it to be a subway station. I wanted it to be, you know, the girl would be sitting in the same spot, like Sam was sitting in the same spot, and I would have the 2 characters on either side. Like, all of those things in my head, like, that didn't happen. It didn't get written that way in the final draft. So I think it's a bit of, like, word vomit, and then cleaning it up, and then also, like, when you actually go into, like, your production draft of, like, what can I actually film? Like, I can't film in a subway station. It's not realistic. So, okay, well, how are we going to portray this then? And having to be creative and then writing it for that.
That's something that I always found interesting. It is that you don't really need to be at a subway station. You just have to make the scene that you're filming and look like a subway station, right? The power of set design. I remember, like, for one of the scenes in my film, we were looking to film in this therapist office. We never got access to a therapy office, but then again, I came to you, and you gave me these really cool ideas on how I can actually use set design and create my own office.
Yeah.
The thing is, because I haven't, like, directed my own film, and because I do not have a background in filmmaking, have a background in photography, it's really interesting to see how much work actually goes into film, and how you cannot expect to do everything on your own.
Yes.
You need to be open to, in a way, learning from everyone in your crew, which I find is highly valuable. I want you to go all the way back to your very first experience in film and tell the viewers a little bit about what that was like, what it was like working with the crew for the very first time. Let it be as an actor and as a filmmaker. I'm pretty sure your career in acting has has obviously made you a better filmmaker. But what was it like being on a professional set for the very first time?
So I was 5 years old. It was stunt acting for a show called Against the Wall. I don't remember much. I remember I have very curly hair. I remember going into set and they were like, "What do we do with this kid's hair?" Like that was the first thing I remember. The biggest thing I remember was I was like, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but I knew I walked on set and it was so overwhelming. Like I was on this field, they were filming and there was like 50 people behind the camera just staring at me. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like I love it. I want to be here. I don't know why. It was so weird 'cause I'd never been on set and I was like, it was so new, but I was like, I need to be here. And like from literally that point on, I was like, I don't know what it is. It's just something about like sets and like it's so interesting to me. And like I don't know, like I performed and I had a lot of fun, but that was kind of the biggest thing for me was like I need to be here. And I don't know what I want to do here, but I just need to be here. Yeah.
So in a way, it was a calling, right?
I think it was a calling. A very cheesy, call it another life fate, but I think it was a calling.
No, I don't think it's cheesy though. I think it's really cool that at the age of 5, you figure out what exactly you want to do, and you started with acting, and then you slowly got into filmmaking, and it's taken you to some beautiful people, some beautiful places, and it's given you some beautiful experiences.
That's the crazy thing with film is like the opportunities have been insane. Like I would have never guessed I would, like have my film played in a theater or 2 films played in a theater. Like I would never guess that like a film that I wrote and directed like would have the response it did. Like I think that's like and the people that you meet, like it's so insane, and film is such a community. And we're all very tight-knit, and we all kind of have one thing in common, that we want to tell a story. So I think that's very, very special. I never thought I would be here, like, doing film, so.
When I go and I do photography, we're going out there and we take some impactful images, like documentary photography, for example. What we shoot is really, like, impactful. And they say an image can say 1,000 words, right? But in film, like, you can sit in a theater and you can have 100 people look at the film, and everyone feels the exact same emotions. Everyone follows the hero through his journey and goes with him with all the ups and downs. In photography, it's more up to like interpretation, because it's a single image. If we show it to 100 people, there are going to be different interpretations. But in a film, because it's so planned out and it's so structured and everything is in a way set in stone before we even go and film, we kind of know what we are going to produce. When the audience looks at it, they're kind of taken on the journey. They kind of go into the film and become a part of it. And when you're watching it in like IMAX or something like that, that's what I love to do. I try my best to go and watch movies in IMAX as much as possible. And it's really such a beautiful experience. It's such an honor to work in such a beautiful industry, right?
Yeah, I think that with photography too, like that's really interesting. You said about like, interpretation. I think like photography is art and film is art, and I think that really good films they offer interpretation. Like even if we're taking on this journey with the characters and like it is planned out, at the end of the film if there's something that's like a little bit open to interpretation, I think that's really beautiful. Whereas if you have 100 people in a theater and they all take away something different based on their experiences, like if you can do the same thing with film as you can with photography, like I think that you've won as a director for sure.
When do you think a director should be direct with the story that they're saying? And when do you think it's okay to have these type of elements where you leave the audience with interpretative information?
It's a very good question. I think it really depends on like your filmmaking style. Like I think I've taken on a filmmaking style where I am telling stories that are more subliminal and more like up for interpretation, because I think that's something that's interested me. Like the films that I watch, I've been really interested in that kind of storytelling. I think it really depends on your intentions. Like, are you trying to make people think, or are you trying to get a message across? If you're trying to get a message across, maybe you should be more direct. Or if it reaches someone in a more indirect way, then maybe do that. Like, I think with Razors Do Burn, like, I had direct messages about, you know, abuse and about, you know, self-harm, like you said, and kind of power dynamics in relationships. But then you also subliminal messages of, like, how much the love when we're a child shapes who we are and shapes who we are going into romantic relationships. Like, if you could pick up on that because you related to that, and like good, like, you know what I mean? Like, but then if you didn't, then like you're still taking away this other message. So I think if you have a main message and you can add in subliminal ones, like, that's probably a good recipe for a good movie.
By the way, do you feel that films has the responsibility to portray reality or give people this mode of escape from reality?
I think that, like, okay, my 3 favorite films are Waves, Moonlight, and Talladega Nights. And Waves and Moonlight are very, very deep films. Talladega Nights is a Will Ferrell movie. And you can't just have all films be escapism. You can't just have all films be truth. You need different genres. You need to have, you know, these really, really silly movies you can watch with your family to wind down. You need these more profound films that also, you know, offer different truths and meanings to the universe and you know, give us a conversation to start with society and gives us that message. And I think that it's up to that filmmaker to decide what their purpose is. And if you choose to do comedy and pursue comedy, then that's, you know, that's your passion. And if you choose to do, you know, drama or these other types of films, then that's your passion as well. Like, we can't just have all one genre, otherwise we're gonna go insane. If we're watching these deep films, we're gonna get depressed. Like, you know what I mean? If we watch BoJack Horseman every night for, like, the rest of our lives, we're gonna get depressed because it's a very, very deep show.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need Talladega Nights. Like, we need to laugh. So I think it's up to that filmmaker to decide, you know, what their calling is and what they do best as a filmmaker.
Yeah, but I also love films that are based on a real story. I feel like when we watch a story that really inspires us, and then they tell us that this was a real story, the fact that it's not like completely fiction and it is doable and achievable in real life, that kind of motivates me as a viewer to go out there and achieve big things in everyday life. And when I see a superhero movie, you can see, like, so many people get inspired by superheroes, right? It's because they fight for something way bigger than themselves. Yes. And that's really cool. That's really cool. Well, what's your favorite genre of film?
My favorite genre? I don't know. I feel like I need them all. Like, I feel like it really depends on my mood. And, like, as a filmmaker, I'm looking to, you know, the dramas and the coming-of-age films as inspiration for my filmmaking, because that's kind of the genres that I have taken on. But, you know, like, comedies are good too. And rom-coms are great as well. Like, I don't know, I love all types of movies. I love musicals. I think if you don't watch all genres as a filmmaker, then you're doing something wrong, because you need to embrace all genres, because you never know where inspiration can come from.
And coming back to the topic that you were speaking about, where you told me that you put yourself into the minds of whoever it is that you're writing, right? I feel like if you are to write about a serial killer, watch 10 movies about serial killers, watch 10 of the best movies about serial killers, and kind of learn the way the mind works. If you want to write a good rom-com, watch 100 rom-coms. It's gonna train your mind to think. Like, you start to see connections between what's working and what's not. And then you can take that and you can put it into your film. And that's the approach that I take when I'm writing my own stories. But if you have anything to say on that.
I think you kind of reminded me of, like, something that's similar but a little bit different is, like, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't need to. Like, I remember for Razors Do Burn, this is something that's so simple, but, like, I had I when she gets cut by the razor on her thigh, I was like, well, how am I going to do that? And I was like, what could I do? I could do this, I could do that, or, like, you know, for their smoking scene, like, what am I going to do? Like, I need fake joints, da-da-da-da. But it's like, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? It's already been done. go and watch those other movies, research them. Okay, well, how did they cut her thigh? They already had the cut there, it was out of frame, she lifted her thigh up, oh, boom, it was cut. That works. Like, it's storytelling, and watching all those films is going to give you ideas on how you can portray a certain thing. Or, like, the colors that I use in Razors Do Burn. If that film didn't have colors, it would not have been as impactful. Like, I got that from movies, from watching movies. So, I think it's, like, drawing inspiration, like you said, and not trying to do things that are so completely different if that's your genre. Like, yes, be original, but also use other people's work. They've already had to come up with those ideas, so use them and push them further.
Exactly, that's some really good advice, because when we make films, we want our films to be authentic. But again, because we want our films to be authentic, we fail to take inspiration from other films,
Yes.
because it feels like we are copying those films
Yes.
in a way, right? But what my photography professors taught me is you gotta steal like an artist in a way. Is you gotta take inspiration from everyone's art, and by doing that you see what works, and then try to bring your own style into it, and that's how you make it authentic. You don't have to be you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel the way you said, right? You can just go out there and create work, and use your work and compare it to what's working in the industry, and see why does it work. Because there's a reason why that film was a blockbuster, right? There's a reason why this photo was so impactful. Was it the framing? Was it the subject matter? Was it the lights, the way it was used in this film? It's using a soft light and then using like colorful red light, it gives a completely different look and
Yes.
feel. And you can really get an idea by watching other films and taking inspiration from them.
I think to go with that too is, like, open yourself up to art. Like, if you're a filmmaker, go and look at photography. Go to a museum, look at paintings, go to live musicals. Like, I found so much inspiration from seeing Sheridan musicals. I feel so inspired afterwards. And on, like, Another Life, the last scene is an ode to BoJack Horseman, it's a cartoon show. The last scene of BoJack Horseman, I thought it was the most profound thing that I've watched in so long, and I watched it, I think, maybe 5 years ago, and I carried that scene with me because I thought it was so well done, and they said so much without saying anything. It was a shot of the two characters who had kind of had this, like, love that had kind of fizzled out, and they grown apart from each other, and they're sitting on this roof together, looking up at the stars, and there's all this headroom, and they just hold the shot for way too long. And I was like, this is so beautiful. You have these two characters that once loved each other, that are just with each other, and they're probably not going to talk again. And I was like, I want that in my film. And like, I literally paid an ode, and we called it the BoJack Horseman shot in my film, and it worked so well. And that was from a cartoon. So like, I think opening yourself up to as many medias as you can to get inspiration.
That's beautiful. BoJack Horseman, it has one of the most realistic depictions of depression and mental health
Yes.
that I have seen in my entire life.
Yes.
Because when we think of mental health, when we think of depression, we think of someone who's like sitting and crying in the room. We don't imagine, we can't even comprehend how a massive TV star could have so much sorrow in their life. And the way he shields it from everyone else and seems okay, and the way he pushes away characters like Todd from
Yes.
his life, and he fails to admit that he's the problem and he's the cause. It's because it's easy for us as human beings to look outside of ourselves and blame everything out there other than ourselves. It's so beautifully and masterfully portrayed, and exactly taking inspirations from films like that and showing mental illness, showing depression, and having the BoJack like shot in your film, it really helped elevate that particular shot. If you hadn't taken inspiration from BoJack Horseman, you probably wouldn't have had that shot in your film.
Yeah. And like, with a little bit of backstory and pre-production, like that was meant to happen on it was gonna be a subway train, and then it was gonna be the beach. And I was like, okay, well, how are we gonna film these kids on a beach? We can't light the beach. We can't do this and that. And then we ended up having the roof of this shed that we could put on the ground and put it on a hill, so it looked like they were up on this red tin roof and they were up in the sky, and we put the actors on the roof and we shot the scene, and like it just turned out so much better than like the original idea I had, which I think is like a really cool way of like independent filmmakers. We don't have the money to build a beach set or like light a beach. We can't do that, so we have to be creative, and sometimes those creative liberties, okay, you know what, like she's on a roof, she's looking out this big open world because she's having these big open feelings about life and trying to figure it out, and it's like that turned out so much better because we didn't have any money, you know what I mean? Like I think it's kind of beautiful.
That's the beauty of independent filmmaking,
yes.
right? We make the most beautiful films with the least amount of money
yes.
possible. It just shows us that you don't need the most money to be creative,
yeah.
right? Think of unique solutions and think of ways where you can get stuff done. You don't need a therapy office to shoot a scene in a therapy office,
yes.
if you know what I mean. And again, I learned that by hanging out with film kids and hanging out with people like you and seeing the way you approach these type of challenging situations. I've seen 3 different scenes shot in the exact same room, and the only thing that they changed was they changed the set design and they changed the light. Because I remember in Nico's film, Reaping the Whirlwind, the scene where the officers talk to each other and the family, it happens in the same building.
yes.
It's just the top floor and the bottom floor with completely different set design and completely different lighting. It completely changes the entire scene. It changes
yes.
the entire mood. And while I was gaffing that, I had to keep in mind that when we have these military officers talking about how they want to bomb Germany, we need the light to be like cool. We want that to feel cool. And then when I was filming the scenes with all the other characters in there, right, the family, I wanted those scenes to feel warm. It's because there's warmth in family, and that cool color that I used for these marshals speaking with each other, that kind of like, it gave the emotion of being cold and not caring of the feelings of the innocent victims that were going to get bombed and the innocent victims that were going to die. And thinking about it that way, it's really remarkable what you can do when you think of creative ways of making stuff work in film.
And I think even like the cool and warm thing, it's so simple, but it's so effective. Like for the birthday scene, we had like, it was obviously extremely warm. We had the candles, but then we had an orange light. And the fight scene in Another Life, it was complete. We put like literally blue lights in the apartment, like it was blue. The funny thing with Another Life is we couldn't get, so her apartment scenes, they were all shot in the story. It was at night, and we couldn't get that location at night. We filmed that all during the day, and Jim Carew, our gaffer, blacked out all the windows. That entire thing was filmed during the day. We just blacked out the entire apartment to make it look like night, and it worked. Like, it looked like night. And, like, that's another thing, like, having to be creative. And by doing that, we all didn't have to stay up the entire night. We could just work during the day and then go home and sleep. So it's, I think just figuring out how to do certain things on a budget and creatively to work around schedules. And it'll make us way better workers when we get into union stuff and we have the money where we can be like, okay, wait, why are we overcomplicated things? We can just do this because you already did it on a student film set.
Honestly, I feel like lower budget films are technically way harder to film than high budget films. Am I right?
I think it depends who you would be asking on the crew. I feel like people would have different opinions based on like what their position is.
Yeah, because I feel that when you have a massive budget, you can kind of invest and get anything, right? You were speaking about lighting a beach. If this was $1 million film, we could get this massive crane
100%.
And have a light on the crane and light the entire beach.
Yeah.
But when we are a small independent filmmaker who doesn't have a big budget to create that scene, we have to think a lot more on how we are going to light the beach and make it seem like the beach is lit without having access to a massive crane.
Yeah.
That's why I personally feel that when we go high budget, the stakes are really, really high, but then in a way, it's kind of easier when it comes to the workflow. And when you work on smaller films and you don't have the time to film in a location and you don't have the money to invest in food and invest in the lights, and you, let's say you're paying the actors as well, and when you have a lot to lose, it's way more stressful in a way. Again, I could be completely wrong because I'm a photographer, but yeah, like, tell me about it.
I think as as a director of independent films, it is very hard. Like you're looking at locations, you're looking at your work, like you're budgeting everything. So that can be very difficult. We were going out and scouting locations for weeks, going to Toronto multiple times a week to look at the different beaches for the movie and seeing what would work and like what didn't work. And on a union set, obviously you're gonna have money where you can spend, and you have locations. Like if you're a director on like a union set, you're sending your locations people to go and look at those locations. Like you don't have to do that. Like obviously you're gonna go to a few location surveys, but you don't have to do the amount of work that they're doing. You have different departments, so I think it is definitely more organized. There's definitely pros and cons to both though. Like with union sets, there are higher stakes, but you do have more money. With independent sets, you don't have any money. There are lower stakes, but then maybe it's a passion project, so maybe there are higher stakes for you compared to like a bigger set. And it really depends on the circumstance, I think.
And the reason I ask you this is because I don't have a lot of experience in film, but the way I gain my knowledge in film is by having filmmakers like you who worked on your own films come here and give me this valuable advice. Because when I'm directing my first film, Borrowed Memories, and I do not want to take this cliche route of making a rom-com. Nothing wrong with rom-coms. I love rom-coms, right? But I wanted to really push myself as a writer and write this timepiece and write this sci-fi murder mystery. And when I made this film, when I wrote it, what I had in mind was that it was going to be simple, right? You get the script, and then it's all you have to worry about is getting the locations, getting the actors, and getting like a camera person and someone to record the audio and someone to do the lights,
like,
and
all
that's about
done.
it. All
this
done.
is so easy.
Right, but then when you go to pre-production, you barely know if your film's going to be made or not because there's so many factors that goes into it. And it's a really humbling experience, and I really learn a lot just by hanging around with other filmmakers. So if there are like people out there, if you want to get into film, if you want to get into photography, hang out with photographers, hang out with filmmakers. You don't have to be the director on set, right? You don't have to be the director on set. You just be on set. Just be on set, because I never went to a film program. But I learned filmmaking just by assisting all of you guys, by being on your set and watching how you guys work. I kind of learned what an AD does, what a soundy does, right? There's ambient sound. Like once everyone finishes recording, everyone on set goes quiet and they just record ambient sound. And I did not know that was a thing, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know ambient sound was a thing. It was so unique. And the way you guys film, you guys form an entire short list. You have a script breaking down each scene, and the document kind of has the number of actors in there, what type of props you're going to use. It's so inspiring to see how much work goes into film. And the questions that I ask, I'm pretty sure someone out there is asking that exact same question, because I don't know a lot about film, and they probably don't know a lot about film, and that's why I have people like you to teach me a lot about film. And I really appreciate you coming here and sharing this valuable information.
Yeah, of course.
So it was a really fun interview. I feel we spoke on a lot of really cool topics. If we were to end this with some words of inspiration to filmmakers and photographers out there who want to go out there and create their own passion projects and maybe direct their own films one day, what piece of advice would you give them?
I would definitely say, don't get caught up in the complexities of things. Look at your story look at how you're gonna tell your story, and like don't think about like, oh, like this location would be so cool if we did this, or like this action scene would be so, like, think, okay, like does that fit your story? Does that tell your story? Because if it doesn't, then like throw it out the window. Like, especially when you're starting out. Like my first film I did, we shot it in a few hours with one actor, with one camera, like on campus, and like we told a very, very powerful story. I feel like from the response it got, and like it was so simple. It was a 3-minute film. Like it was the simplest of the simple. So I think like even I like get caught up in like, oh, I want to film at a Subway and I want to do this, I want to do that, and it's like, okay, like, but does that fit the story? Are you telling your story? I think going to the roots of it and not overcomplicating things. Don't need to be overcomplicated because it's already a very complicated process. So don't make it hard on yourself.
Exactly, because this is the advice that almost everyone gave me when I pitched my script to them for the first time. It was 40 pages long.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone was telling me, you're taking in something that's very, very big and it's way too ambitious. You can have all of these different scenes in there, but does it really add to the story?
Yeah.
Like when the script edit was done and we got the script back, it turned from a 40-page script into a 25-page script, right? Now it was a 30-page script, but I think they brought it down again. But so many lines were cut off, and it made the script better. And I definitely could not see that. When they told me they were cutting it down, I was just so scared. I'm like, what do you mean you're cutting it down? This took me 2 months to write, and you're just cutting down 10 pages?
Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
That's the thing, is like not getting, when you write and direct, and like I've written, directed, and edited my films, my last 2. So it's like, don't get attached to them. Like when I have a film, that is my child. Like I am spending 12 hours a day on that film. I'm going to bed dreaming about that film. Like it's, you just put in so much time and energy that it's hard to like turn, I know this is for me, it's hard to turn it off. So like when you are in the editing room and you have a scene and you're like, I don't want to cut this scene, sometimes you have to be like, hey, like let it go. I know this is like your baby, but like you need to let it go sometimes. And I think getting second opinions is so important, especially if you are like writing, directing, and editing your film. You need to like get people to watch it to get second opinions. Because Another Life, like I was staring at that movie for so long that I was like, this film is bad. I'm staring at this, I'm like, what, like I failed. Like I hate this film because I was staring at it for so long. But then it got screened and everyone was like this is like, Robin, like this is really good, and I was like, wait, like what? Like I'm like, oh, is it? Like
I've related so much because I've taken pictures that I wanted to just burn.
Yes.
Right? I've taken some images in my life and I've looked at my camera and I've thought to myself, I have failed as a creative, I've failed as a photographer. There's no way I went this long in my career and I'm making images that look like this, right? I've wanted to quit photography so many times looking at bad images, but then just by sticking to it, trusting the process and consistently shooting, I have some good images that I absolutely love, and then there are the bad ones that make me like feel like a failure. But again, knowing that it's all part of the process,
Yes.
you are going to go through it multiple times in your creative journey. How do you respond as a creative? That's really important for you long time, especially if you want to sustain, because celebrating the good, celebrating the wins, that's really easy, right? But accepting the losses, do you have the strength to do that?
Yeah, and I think also like as a creative, like taking breaks is so important. Like I was doing 2 films a year for the past 2 years, and like the summertime, like do not like I'm not looking at a script. If I'm directing it, I'm not directing. Like I'm gonna like, help out on camera and do what I can for other people's films, but I am not directing in the summer. Like that is my time to like creatively like reboost my brain and like revive it, because like directing 2 films a year is a lot. Like that takes me out and it's so much time and energy. So it's like, it's really important to take, months at a time where you're not looking at a script. I'm not directing, not doing anything. Like I'm right now I'm distributing my films, and I'm kind of like, doing little things like podcasts and like going to premieres, stuff like that. But like I'm taking this time to like not do film. Do you know what I mean?
Wind down, right?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really important just as a creator to take breaks. Otherwise, you're gonna burn out.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get burnout.
If I did 3 films a year, I would be burnt out. Like I 2 is my maximum.
Yeah, that was some really good quality advice. Well, thank you so much for being here on this podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much.
When I first met you on Nat's set, that's the first time I met you, and I saw the way you worked with the lighting, the way you got that warm light to fall through the window, even though it was just plain white outside. I just knew I needed to have you in the podcast because you're so talented.
Thank you.
And it's so much fun to see your films and see the way you actually work in action. It's so cool to see you in action, you know?
Yes, I know you have to come on my set soon. Next year, you're coming on my set.
Yeah. You should totally have me on your set, right? I would love to be on your set, dude. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
It was so valuable. And I'm pretty sure everyone watching here would like to follow you on Instagram. So what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is films by Robin Skye Farr with an E on the sky.
Cool. I'm going to be linking that down in the description. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Bye, guys.
Bye. I'll see you guys in the next video.